Welcome back. This is episode 11 of the On-Site Podcast. Have you ever sprinted through an airport terminal, just completely panicked that you were about to miss a flight?
Oh, absolutely. Heart pounding, sweating, the whole thing.
Right. But what if you realized in that moment that the hardest part of travel isn't the running at all? It's actually, the invisible cultural rules you didn't even know you were breaking.
Yeah, it's always those quiet assumptions of a new place that trip us up the most. And our author really finds that out the hard way today.
He really does. So if you've been following along, you know he's been in Pensacola for a few months. He had this, solid routine with his colleague, Mickey, and Mickey's wife, Sarah.
But now it's Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Mickey and Sarah are away visiting family, leaving him entirely on his own. And from our last deep dive, you'll remember his Indian food supplies were critically low, and cooking was just a massive struggle.
He was basically living on frozen meals, just hoping for the best.
Yeah, which sets the stakes perfectly for today. We are tagging along on his very first domestic flight in the U.S. He's heading to Los Angeles for Thanksgiving to visit his aunt.
A much-needed reset, right?
Exactly. He wants to learn some basic cooking skills, restock that empty pantry, and just see family. But stepping out of that Pensacola bubble turns into this wild whirlwind of culture shock, huge crowds, and some hilarious misadventures.
It's so compelling because he is finally colliding with broader American infrastructure. We get to see these everyday systems through his fresh, highly observant eyes.
Let's start with the departure because it is just wondrously nostalgic. To get to the airport, he actually uses a phone to call a local cab by manually dialing 444-4444.
Oh, wow. That is such a classic mid-2000s moment.
Right. And a few minutes later, this massive, lumbering yellow Lincoln car rolls up. It drops him at the Pensacola airport, which he describes as this really charming, intimate space.
I think he said it only had, 8 gates?
Yeah, exactly. 8 gates and 1 single restaurant. He notes the check-in felt almost primitive compared to the international airports back in India.
Sure.
But, he boards his flight and touches down for a layover in Atlanta. And that quiet simplicity, it just vanishes.
Oh, it evaporates the second he steps off the plane at Hartsfield-Jackson.
The sensory shock here is so visceral. Suddenly, he's in this roaring labyrinth of subterranean concourses, trains whipping by, neon signs, just an infinite stream of travelers.
It's overwhelming for anyone, let alone someone navigating it for the first time.
Exactly. It's like, imagine stepping out of a quiet rural library directly onto the field of a roaring sports stadium. You go from total calm to absolute chaos. I mean, how does that sudden loss of visual control, not seeing all the gates at once, amplify that travel anxiety?
Well, human spatial orientation relies heavily on visible boundaries, right? When you can see the perimeter, your brain maps it instantly. You feel secure.
But Atlanta just strips that completely away.
Totally. A mega hub like that is designed for throughput, not visibility. You're funneled through tunnels and pushed up escalators. When you lose that visual map, you have to blindly trust the little signs pointing to Concourse B.
Which is terrifying when you're already out of your element.
Right. And for our author, losing that line of sight control triggers this primal vulnerability. He literally writes about feeling terrified that the sheer volume of the crowd was going to swallow him up.
And what's fascinating is that this architectural vulnerability extends into spaces that are supposed to be, deeply private.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the layover, he has to use the public restroom.
Oh, this is the best part.
It really is. This brings us to probably the most relatable culture shock of his trip. American public restrooms.
His raw transparency here is just brilliant. He articulates this bizarre quirk that locals have completely tuned out.
He walks in, and the lack of privacy hits him like a brick wall. In India, he was used to these being walled-off private rooms.
Yeah.
But here, the stalls hover a full foot off the ground.
Yeah, wide open at the top, zero acoustic barriers.
But the thing he zeroes in on with absolute horror is the door gaps.
The infamous American stall gap.
Yes. The space between the door and the frame is so wide. He describes his constant threat of accidental direct eye contact with impatient strangers washing their hands. He felt painfully exposed. I mean, why on earth do we build them this way?
It's a great question. If you look at the history, it was driven almost entirely by utility. A stall that hovers off the ground lets a janitor mop the floor in a fraction of the time.
Ah, so it's all about maintenance.
Maintenance and security. Those wide gaps let staff do a quick visual check to see if it's occupied or if, someone collapsed in there. It prioritizes cost-effective utility over human comfort.
Which basically ignores the human desire for dignity.
Completely. It relies on a social contract. Everyone implicitly agrees to perform this illusion of privacy, We pretend we can't hear the person next to us. We stare rigidly at the floor tiles to avoid the gaps.
But if you haven't been raised with that unwritten rule like our author, the illusion doesn't exist. You're just sitting in a highly exposed box.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're just hyper aware of everyone around you.
So he finally escapes the restroom anxiety, boards his flight to LA, and immediately runs into a completely new hurdle at 30,000 feet.
The airplane snack cart. A true cultural milestone.
Right. So the flight attendant hands him a small bag of mini pretzels. Now remember, he's a strict, lifelong vegetarian. He's instinctively cautious. He has never seen a pretzel in his life.
Which is so hard for an American to fathom.
Yeah, so he looks up at her, totally earnest, and asks if they are vegetarian.
Her reaction is just priceless.
She is completely bewildered. She stops, stares at him, asks him to repeat the question, and just nods slowly with absolute confusion on her face. She's clearly never had to verify the meatless status of baked dough.
It is just a phenomenal clash of contexts.
But I've got to push back on his caution a bit here. I mean, isn't a pretzel pretty visibly just bread? How does someone look at a pretzel and think, this might have meat in it?
Well, let's look at it through his culinary lens. To someone unfamiliar with Western baking traditions, a pretzel doesn't look like normal bread. It's hard, shiny, twisted, covered in coarse white rocks.
I guess that's true. It doesn't look like a standard loaf.
And more importantly, his caution is highly logical based on his life in India. Processed foods globally often contain hidden animal byproducts like rennet, gelatin, or animal fats used for glazing. He doesn't know how this shiny knot was made. Asking is the only safe move.
Wow, so assuming it's just harmless weed is really a luxury of our own familiarity. That makes a lot of sense. And his actual taste test only confuses him more.
Oh yeah, he is genuinely conflicted.
He's chewing it, and he finds the flavor totally flat and aggressively salty. He compares it to the savory snacks in India, which have a vibrant dimensional kick.
Right, like chili, cumin, garam masala.
Exactly. The pretzel has no dimension, it's just salty. It's a total puzzle to his palate.
Mm-hmm.
Though he does mention this fun historical fact he learned way later.
The origin story with the monks, right?
Yeah. Pretzels were invented by 7th century European monks. They twisted dough to represent the Holy Trinity, looking like a child's arms crossed in prayer.
That is so interesting. But up there in 2006, he has no idea about any of that.
No clue at all. Just chewing on a salty, confusing puzzle. But, you know, the geography lesson really shifts when he lands in Los Angeles. After all this disorientation, LA actually provides him with an immediate sense of comfort.
Which might surprise you, given how intimidating a sprawling metropolis can be.
I definitely thought it would overwhelm him. He's in Culver City, near Universal Studios, soaking in the cinematic energy. But the things that feel familiar aren't the palm trees. It's the soaring skyscrapers, the gridlock traffic, the visible homelessness, and the stark wealth gap.
All hallmarks of his daily life in Mumbai.
Exactly.
We so often think of cultural familiarity as, like, nationality America versus India. But urban landscapes have this shared transnational language. A massive, hyper-congested city like LA shares more structural DNA with Mumbai than it ever could with Pensacola.
The overwhelming scale is ironically what makes him feel at home. But while his brain is adjusting to the city, his body is battling a huge geographical misconception he had before he even left Bombay.
Ah, the climate assumption. This is a classic mistake.
He admits he just lumped all of Florida into one category, a tropical paradise. It never occurred to him that the Florida Panhandle gets a biting winter chill.
He was completely unprepared for it.
Freezing. So one of the first things he does in LA is ask his aunt for help buying a winter jacket.
Which drops him right into the deep end of a major American consumer ritual.
Oh yeah, she doesn't take him on a quiet Tuesday. She takes him Black Friday shopping.
In the mid-2000s, the absolute peak of mall-based retail frenzy.
He gets to the mall early, and he is just stunned. He'd never seen so many cars or people packed into one place. He calls it American capitalism at its finest. They go to JCPenney, and the crowd pressure gets to him.
The artificial scarcity just takes over.
Right, he panic buys this brown suede St. John's Bay jacket that is 2 full sizes too big.
When you see hundreds of people grabbing items, your brain just screams, "Secure resources now!" regardless of whether it fits.
And he hilariously admits he still wears it today because it's so oversized it never wore out. He also grabs some flannel shirts that he now confesses were a total fashion disaster.
Hey, he's learning that America is not a monolith, climatically or culturally, and he's learning it through a baggy suede jacket.
Truly. So wardrobe sorted, his aunt steps in to solve his biggest struggle, the food. She spoils him with authentic, home-cooked Indian meals. He notes that the emotional comfort of that food was exactly what he craved.
Food is the ultimate emotional tether to your identity, especially when everything else is foreign.
And she gives him the tools to take that tether back to Florida. She introduces him to two life-changing gadgets, a mini rice cooker and a mini slow cooker.
These little devices act as incredible cultural bridges.
They really do. She teaches him a new strategy. He just throws raw lentils into the slow cooker in the morning, and by the time he gets home from campus, they are perfectly done. It totally eliminates his fear of the traditional pressure cooker.
It is brilliant in its simplicity.
Plus, she takes him to this massive Indian diaspora grocery store in LA to restock his pantry, so he is armed and ready. But first, he has to conquer the return flight out of LAX.
And this is the ultimate test right here.
It's so deeply ironic. So he gets to LAX 40 minutes early. He finds his gate, takes a seat, and waits. 30 minutes. 20 minutes. No activity. The signboard says flight closed, and the area is empty. Now, back in India, gate changes were incredibly rare, so he just assumes it's a delay.
Which is a highly rational deduction. If nothing is happening, the system must be delayed.
But then suddenly his name blares over the PA system. It's the last call for Atlanta. He freezes, processes it, and then goes into a dead sprint across the entire airport.
He nearly missed the whole thing because he trusted the visible evidence.
He slides in right under the wire, one of the last 10 people to board. And I asked this earlier, but how is it that he navigated the chaotic Black Friday crowds perfectly, but got totally outsmarted by a quiet, empty airport gate?
It's about the script, right? Visible chaos, like Black Friday, has a transparent objective. You see people buying things, you know the goal is to buy things. But airport operations run on an invisible script.
No, that makes sense.
A gate change assumes, to monitor digital screens, listen for specific PA tones, and never, ever trust the printed ticket once you sit down.
He entirely trusted the printed ticket. That was his tangible proof.
Exactly. When you enter a new culture, the loud events usually have obvious rules. It's the quiet assumptions, the unwritten operational logistics that catch you off guard. He didn't know the script for a dynamic gate change.
The empty gate literally tricked him into a false sense of security. But despite the panic, he makes the flight. He lands back in Pensacola, and it is a triumphant return.
He's got the baggy jacket, the appliances, the stocked pantry.
Yes. And the gadgets work like a charm. He walks into his apartment, and it smells richly of cooked lentils and fluffy rice. He completely ends his reliance on frozen food. He's leveled up his independence.
He's actively shaping his environment now, not just surviving it.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. We often think of home as a specific physical place. But what if it's really just the ability to walk through your front door and smell a familiar meal cooking?
That's a wonderful way to look at it. The technology doesn't erase the tradition, it just helps it survive the journey.
Exactly. Well, that wraps up today's deep dive into the Thanksgiving adventure. We hope you enjoyed tagging along for the airport sprints and pretzel puzzles as much as we enjoyed unpacking them for you. Keep exploring, keep questioning those invisible scripts around you, and we'll catch you on the next one.